Hi, Julia. Hi, Carly. Hey, you're in Austin too. Patty in Wisconsin. Sharon in Alberta, Canada. Love Canada. Thanks for being here, you guys. And so prompt too. Can everyone hear me okay? Just drop in the chat box if you can hear me. Welcome, welcome. So as you're signing in, go ahead and drop into the chat box and let me know where you're tuning in from. And I'll wait a couple more minutes just to give people some time to come in. Fellow Texans, woo woo! That's right. Hey, Miami. Looks like we got a lot of Americans and Canadians. Massachusetts, wonderful. Welcome, welcome. Greenville, South Carolina, California coast, Erie, Colorado. Yes, it is about to go live. We are ready. Hi, everyone. Let me know if you can hear me. Drop in the chat box where you're tuning in from, and I will get started shortly. Welcome, welcome, everyone. I'm going to give everyone a couple more minutes to start filing in. Looks like we've got some declutterers already joining us. That's wonderful. I am streaming from Austin, Texas. Please drop a note in the chat box of where you're coming from. Hello from Kansas. Hello from Canada. It's awesome. A lot of North Americans. Ooh, we got a South American. Amazing. Brazilian, Colombian, in Amsterdam. This is just so fun. Okay, well, since we're recording, I'll think about the future viewers of this stream as well. But I want to welcome you all here. Welcome to the Tiny House Global Conference. This is my second time participating, and I just loved the community and the whole event. If you can hear, can everyone hear me? Okay, all right. If you don't have sound, then try turning your volume up on your headphones, or make sure that you don't have an external speaker. Yep, my dog just is barking off. So he does that from time to time. I hope he's not too unruly. He also sometimes comes to my office door and knocks his head on the door because he wants to come in. So if you hear a little thud, that's what that is. Okay, I'm glad to hear that many of you can hear me. That's wonderful. So again, thank you for being here. Welcome. And I'm going to go ahead and get started just to make sure that you are in the correct place. I went ahead and started sharing my screen. This is a session on decluttering and organizing, specifically for tiny living. These tips and this information will apply whether you are already in a tiny home or if you're downsizing in preparation to go tiny. So let's go ahead and jump in, shall we? Let's see. Okay, so in this session, we are going to talk about what clutter even is, because I think it's a word that's kind of abstract. Then we're going to talk about the most effective approach to decluttering, in my humble opinion, which is the KonMari Method, and I will lay out the foundational principles for that. It's really a philosophy of life more than a rule book. So we'll go through each of those principles. And then I will share my 5 top tips for small space storage with some images. Of course, in an hour time frame, I can't give everyone custom design advice or anything like that. So please keep that in mind. And we will talk about the magic of the mindset shift. So as you go through this process, and once you have completed this process in your space, you will never revert to clutter in the same way again. And I will give you some tips for maintaining a tidy space once you've gone through this entire process. I will share my contact information at the end, and we'll also have time for question answer. So we will definitely get to that, but I do want to just dive in. So like I said, clutter is kind of this abstract term. It sells a lot of magazines and books and Netflix shows now because I think it's something that we all deal with. So really coming to define what clutter is a good starting point. So I love this definition by Joseph Ferrari, who's a PhD at DePaul University in Chicago, and he calls it an overabundance of possessions that collectively create chaotic and disordered living spaces. I find that to be generally true in my practice with clients, and you'll hear more about kind of my background and what I do on the day-to-day, but I do work in client homes and also virtually over Zoom to help people declutter, really identify what they need to keep in their home and be able to let the rest go. So I love this definition of clutter because it recognizes that it's an overabundance. It's just too much. And as you know, in Western societies, we all just have too much. So hence why you're a part of this community, right? This tiny home living is very much about intentionally not buying into that societal cultural norm. I would also add to the definition of clutter is items that don't have homes and they just kind of sit out and about and they don't have, thank you, Lindsay, for sharing my contact info. They don't have a home. So you really need to assign a home for every item that you own. There's also things that do have an assigned home that you just don't regularly return at home. So that gets into the habits, which I'll get to at the end, towards the end of this presentation. And I also think of clutter as stuff that you haven't needed or used. Most of the time it's sitting around, piled up, collecting dust. So you likely don't need or use it that often if it's just sitting around. And a key point here is that it's often stuff that's awaiting a decision or an action from you. So maybe it's a project that you got started and never kind of finished, or something that you had intended to do. Maybe you need to return something to the store, and so it's just kind of sitting, waiting for that action to happen. And that's why it adds so much stress to our lives. And it can also be associated with some difficult emotions that maybe haven't been processed quite yet. So all of these things kind of contribute to this overall definition of clutter. And it's, unfortunately, like I said, it stresses us out. It's linked to procrastination and an increase in the stress hormone cortisol. So cortisol is that hormone that goes rushing through our body when we feel our heart pound, and it's fight or flight mode. So it's not a good place to be in for your long-term health, and it just won't create much happiness in your life. And as I mentioned, the average American home has doubled in the last 50 years. I'm living in a 1950s home, but the majority of Americans, and this isn't only to the US, I know this is a global conference, we have people from all over, but I think that these Western ideals of consumerism and capitalism have just continued to spread throughout the world. So likely this is true wherever you are. And the reason for that isn't because we need more space as human beings. I mean, that's never changed. It's just that we've become accustomed to accumulating so much stuff that we need more space to store our stuff, which is really unfortunate. So, and of course, you do not have to live that way. So you can totally opt out of this, and that's why we're here, right? Also, there's an average, I read this in an LA Times article, there's an average of 300,000 items per household. So if you were just to consider each item for a single second, it would take you 83 hours and 20 minutes to do that audit or inventory of your home. So it's time consuming. It's harder to clean when you have a lot of stuff. And, back to Americans, sorry, I'm pretty American centric because I work mostly with Americans, but 26% of us can't fit a car in our garage. So they created this concept of a garage attached to your home so that you could protect the investment of your automobile. But little by little, the clutter has crept into the garage and it's become a storage space. So if you're, in the Midwest and you have basements, this is very true in basements as well. But yeah, there's just no need. So, and the growing industry of storage units. So there's 50,000 storage unit facilities across the US compared to 15,000 Starbucks. And if you're located here in the US, then you know that it seems like there's a Starbucks on every corner. So if there's like almost 5 times as many storage units that are simply storing stuff that is very rarely, if ever, used. I've helped many clients clear out their storage units. And I definitely think that there's a time and a place for a storage unit. If you're maybe in between homes or you're going to be traveling long term and you just have some things that you definitely will use in the future, there's a time and a place for that. But how many people use storage units is just an extension, So yeah, here we go. The fashion industry is another one that's grown over the last 100 years, and the seasons for clothes have gone from, spring, summer, fall, winter to every week there's new merchandise coming out. It's basically treated as if it were disposable. And I know that there's many environmentalists in the tiny house community, and yeah, it's pretty sickening, how far this has gone. And the average person only wears 20% of their wardrobe, like 80% of the time. So all of that clothes, manufacturing, shopping, buying, it's very rare that I do a closet clean out with a client and there's not an item that has tags on because they have just bought it and have never worn it. So again, this is just all to kind of back up this problem that we all are here to learn more about. And who is this woman on the screen? Does anyone recognize her? Throw it in the chat box if you recognize her. Marie. Yes, this is Marie Kondo, Marie Kondo, and she is a Japanese tidying consultant who wrote a book called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And it was translated into English in 2014. I think the Japanese version was published in 2011. I might have that wrong. But yeah, she came on the scene, and it was right around the time that I was starting my business, my professional organizing business here in Austin, Texas. And everyone that I was talking to about my business, the industry had been around for a while, but just like tiny homes, like for those who are not aware of it, there's some disconnect. But when I would talk about my business, people were like, "Oh, have you read that Japanese book?" And I kept hearing about it. And finally I was like, okay, I got to pick up this book. And it blew me away. And it has become like my manual for living. It's such a brilliant philosophy. It's both like rational. It's a very logical process that you go through. But it's also like very soulful and deep and reflective. So I'll tell you more about the KonMari method. The KonMari name comes from Marie Kondo, from her name. And she has just created this methodology for decluttering, for going through your stuff. And so, yes, here's her book. This was the English version or the American version that came out in 2014. And then many of you may have also caught her Netflix show which was January 2019, I believe. So almost 2 years ago. So she's just become this like international sensation. She's kind of growing this empire, but I became an immediate fan after reading her book and decided to train with her to become a KonMari consultant. So that's my story, but I want to see what your knowledge is about the KonMari method. You know, there are definitely some myths out there and there's a lot of truth out there. So let's go through. Throw in the chat box T or F. All right, true or false? The KonMari method is the same thing as minimalism. Is that true or false? See a lot of F's, and that is correct. No. So the KonMari method is the approach to decluttering, which I will explain shortly. And yes, you will be getting tips soon. Whereas minimalism is this ideal that less is always better. So the KonMari method gives you an approach, and it asks you to make the decision for yourself. So there's not a strict rule that, you know, you can only have 2 of X or 1 of Y or anything like that. True or false? Marie Kondo says it's okay to throw away others' things. I'm seeing a lot of falses. Y'all are awesome. Okay, you're doing great on this pop quiz so far. Yes, the answer is false. Really, the approach is intended for you to put into practice with your own stuff. So you do not get free reign to throw away other people's things. And again, it's not about throwing away. It's about looking very closely at what you want and need out of life and making decisions. So, number 3, the KonMari method involves thanking your socks. True or false? Yes, this is true. This is true. So, like I said, this is a soulful spiritual exercise. Marie Kondo has a background in Shinto spirituality, and there's this idea that there's spirits in things and that you need to treat your belongings with respect. So tidying is allowing you to convene with your things and show your great appreciation and respect for your things. So your socks work very hard for you. So you should treat them with love and thanks. Number 4, and there's only 5 questions, so we're almost there. The KonMari method involves buying lots of boxes and containers so you can create a home for each item you own. True or false? This was a tricky one. It's false. Okay, so the idea is not to go out and purchase more, and this is one of the biggest mistakes that people who are trying to get organized make. They equate organization with storage, and that is not the case. However, this second part, so you can create a home for each item you own, that is true. So you do need to create a home for each item you own, but it is not required that you go out and buy something new. More often than not, as you're letting go of stuff, boxes will appear, baskets will appear, things that you have already collected can be reused and can be repurposed. You know, something as simple as a shoebox or the box from your iPhone, your smartphone, can serve as wonderful organizing devices. So it's absolutely not necessary to go out and buy a bunch of new stuff. All right, Marie Kondo believes that your stuff wants you to be happy. True or false? Yes, this is true. So again, the idea is that what is the purpose of stuff? Why are we, drawn to buy things to begin with, or to accumulate things to begin with? It's because we think it's going to make us happy, right? And every object has an intended purpose, right? Something was designed specifically for, like socks were designed specifically to prevent blisters in your shoes and to absorb the sweat or whatever. And different types of socks have different purposes. So her belief, and I share this belief, is that it's trying to do its job. All right, this is the final one, and this is kind of a gimme. As a certified master KonMari consultant, I'm basically a member of Marie Kondo's clutter-hating cult. True or false? It's true. Yeah. Like I said, I bought in, as soon as I read it, I was like, wow, I knew there was a reason that I was drawn to organizing and decluttering, and I didn't have the words, but she spoke the words and wrote them beautifully. By believing that, everything is intended to serve a purpose. And once it has served that purpose, you have the freedom to choose to let that object go. So we're gonna start getting into it. I just wanted to share, a before and after of a client's home, and this will be different, obviously, for tiny home dwellers. This was not a tiny home situation, but it was a home office that had also served as a guest bedroom. But my client had a vision that she wanted to be like the CEO of her own business. And so that was the vision that carried her through this process as she evaluated every object in her home and decided what to keep. So in that second image, you can see how dramatic it can be, and it can really change your life and your mindset, which we'll get to. Okay, now on to the real meat of this, the KonMari Method principles. And, it says rule up there, but again, this is not a rule book. But the starting point for this approach should really be a commitment, or else you're never going to get through it. The people at the Container Store and people who are trying to sell you storage solutions want you to never really get organized. They want you to just keep buying and keep filling up your storage, so that you have to keep buying, right? So it's a trap. But if you commit to this process, I promise you, it will change the way you think about things, and it will change your purchasing behaviors. So rule number one, oh yeah, you want to think about it as a celebration rather than this like commitment, like, a ball and chain scenario. Think about it as an opportunity. Celebrate it like it's a tidying festival. So it will require, making time. If you're one of those people that has 300,000 items in their home, then recognize it's going to take 83 hours of your life to at least to make this change. So it will require an investment of your time, but once you're done, you're done. You will not go back to the way things were. The second principle is to envision your ideal life. So like I said, with that client before, her name is Katie, with her home office, she had a really clear vision that she wanted to start her own business, and she wanted to feel like the CEO of her company and create that within her home office. So you have to decide what your vision for your ideal life is. My suspicion is that if you're attending this global conference, then the tiny home lifestyle really appeals to you, and you want to own less, you want to have less, responsibility, because all of the stuff ends up owning you, is the common refrain. So imagine the happiest version of yourself and what kinds of activities you do and how you feel when you wake up in the morning and how you feel, when you're going to bed at night. What do you want your space? How do you want your space to work for you? So the clearer you can get on that vision before you begin, the more successful you'll be in carrying out this commitment, and the more successful you'll be with living that lifestyle ultimately. The third principle is to, sorry, my dog. The third principle is to finish discarding first. And let's remove the word discarding and think about you eliminate to curate. So I like to think of it as a mindful curation and letting go, but you really want to begin with this process of elimination so that you can, like I said, you don't want to go buy a bunch of storage solutions before you get started. That's not going to change anything in your life, but only by one making decisions about what you need and want out of life mindfully, then you'll be successful in this. The fourth principle is to tidy by category, not location. So, and this doesn't mean location like geographically in the world. This means like a lot of home organizers will consider, each space as a unit. So you'll organize, your closet, and then you'll organize your garage and your linen closet, and you kind of go room by room. But the problem with that is it really just shifts piles of clutter from one space to the other. So until you really get a full inventory, a full visualization of how much of a given category you own, you will think you'll have that scarcity mindset. Like, oh, well, what if I need this? Like, I might need this in the future. But when you work category by category, you're going to be searching the entire home, high and low, for everything within that category. And we will get to what those categories are. So you want to try to do it as much as possible all in one go. So if you're going to do your clothing category, it's better not to, go through one drawer or, 5 t-shirts one day and then go through 10 t-shirts the next day. You really want to get all of your t-shirts together and do them completely. So okay, I've got 67 t-shirts. I wear like these 6 and this one's sentimental. So I'm going to save that for later. So that is the goal. And I apologize for my dog barking. Nothing I can really do about it right now, but I do apologize. The 5th principle is to tidy in the right order. So like I said, you're working category by category, but you want to start with the easiest stuff. And it's like a muscle. You're working on a muscle as you go along and then work your way to the harder stuff. So I'm sure if you're human in this world and you have tried to get organized before, you have come across photos and journals and, some quirky gift that somebody gave you, and you end up kind of reminiscing and going down memory lane. And you're surrounded by clutter. You're on the floor reading your journal from the 4th grade. That is what you want to avoid. Okay. You're going to save all of that sentimental memory lane going until the very end of this journey. And you're going to begin with the easy stuff. So what Marie Kondo qualifies as the easy stuff is clothing, because you're making choices every day about what to put on your body. And during this pandemic, it's probably abundantly clear the things that you like to wear. I mean, granted, hopefully you're not, only wearing sweatpants with holes in them all day, every day. But what feels good on your body, what makes you feel like you make those choices every day about what you want to wear. So it's an easy place to start. And then you work your way to books, and that's, represents the media that you consume. And then papers, not a very joyful category, but it's in the middle for a purpose, because that's where a lot of procrastination tends to take place. It's actions that need to be taken and decisions that need to be made, and shredding needs to be done. So she puts that in the middle to get to the more fun things, which maybe it's kitchen, maybe it's your hobby equipment. All of that kind of stuff is in that miscellaneous category, which she calls kimono, not to be confused with the kimono robe, but kimono with an O. Anyway, not important. And then, like I said, finally, you'll tackle the sentimental stuff. So that's your photos and journals, but also it can be anything from these previous categories. You could have, a dress that reminds you of a particular occasion, or, whatever. And that could be a sentimental item because it's not part of your everyday, wardrobe, but you hold on to it for emotional reasons. The final rule is to keep only what sparks joy. And this is the most, famous line of her entire book. And then she came out with a follow-up book called Spark Joy, which goes into more of the how to organize and arrange things once you've done the decluttering. But again, joy is such a personal thing. Only you can determine what brings you joy. And I will put a qualifier on this, what brings you joy, because it also has to fit your vision for your ideal life. So if your goal is to get into a tiny home, then, even if, these 40 dresses bring a lot of joy, they're not really compatible with this lifestyle unless you're going to have a storage unit, which we've already discussed is not the way to do it. So you do want to, think about both of these things. Like in your ideal life, what will bring you joy and what will fit that lifestyle. And anything that does not fit those qualifications, they don't bring you joy, they're, not necessary or happy, then thank you, goodbye. And it's all about bringing gratitude to the process, because every item that comes into your life, like I said, has likely served a purpose, or it was intending to serve a purpose. So bringing appreciation to, however it served you, or, having the opportunity to have it at your disposal, you should be grateful for that and keep it positive. I like to remind my clients when we're working together, like, please don't call your stuff like crap, shit, junk. Like, that's bringing negativity to the process. This is an opportunity for you to learn more about yourself, learn more about your patterns in the past, and, make a change for the better. So you can really bring a lot of gratitude and positivity to this experience. Okay, please save your questions till the end. I am seeing questions pop up and I really want to answer, but time is short and I want to save 15 to 20 minutes for those questions. So I'm going to move on from the KonMari Method principles and that kind of mindset to my top 5 storage tips. So please, again, save your questions. The first storage tip in general, but especially for small spaces, is try to avoid stacking items on top of each other. As you can see, well, I'll use a better example. As you can see, this book, when it's laying down on its side, is occupying, sorry for those who use the metric system, I'm going to use inches. Let's 8 inches by 4 inches. That is how much surface area that it's occupying. When you stand it up on end, or even the smallest end possible, it's really only occupying like a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch by 4 or 5 inches. So you can really save a lot of space by standing things up on end. And you can also have like a bird's eye view. Look in that image on the right of, that's like a sock drawer on the left that's just all mangled and piled up. But on the right, you can see it occupies so much less space, and you get this beautiful bird's eye view of everything, and you can grab the specific pair of socks that you need to wear that day. And it keeps it super, super tidy, beautiful, and, occupies as little space as possible. The second tip is to use every possible inch of vertical space. In a tiny home, if you're living in 400, 500 square feet sometimes, you don't have a lot of space to store things, but you still have as high of the wall as you have. So by using every inch of vertical space, like you'll see the example on the left of a pegboard, to store kitchen items. Pegboards can also be good for, office supplies, hobby equipment. Really just go up and try to hang things from the wall as much as possible. And then on the right there, you can see like under that upper cabinet, these photos aren't mine. I collected them from Pinterest, but yeah, just by like attaching the mason jar lids either with glue, to the upper cabinets or a really powerful magnet, then you can see everything, grab what you need, and you're really occupying all of that potential storage space. The third tip, and this is kind of an aesthetic thing, but it also helps reduce the cortisol levels, I find, is to remove packaging, which really reduces the visual noise. So for example, paper towels, don't really use these that much in my home. I have reusable napkins and washcloths and towels more often, but it's a perfect example of just like the visual noise that is created by these marketing messages and branding. And once you remove it, it can just be like a blank slate. It can be much more soothing to see. Same thing in the kitchen. If you've got like open cabinetry or open shelving rather than cabinetry, removing things from packages or even buying bulk, you can save money by buying bulk and you can decant it either in, beautiful mason jars or whatever kinds of containers to keep your foods fresher. And it makes preparing to go to the market way easier because you can see how much of everything you have. All right, the fourth tip, and I'm sure tiny home, fans know this, but multifunctionality is your best friend in a small space. So the image on the left, again, these images aren't mine, but the image on the left is like, it's if you want to have a dance party in your home or you want to practice some yoga, you can fold down that table and it slides against the wall. And then when you're ready to have dinner with your loved one, or you need a desk project, you can pull open either one or both of those sides of the table. I think that's a brilliant use of space. I've seen a lot of tiny homes and RV homes and those kinds of things that use like banquet bench seating that have storage underneath, and the table can come down and become a bed or day bed or something like that. All of that is brilliant. So really think about multifunctionality as you're designing your tiny home. And then on the right, you can see those stairs double as storage for clothing. One piece of feedback that I got from the previous presentation I gave at the Tiny Conference was that clothes got dirty from people walking on top of the steps. So I would probably, in my home, institute a no shoe policy in the house and just have like a little spot by the door for shoes to be tucked away. The other option would be to have your designer just add a little bit of extra lip on the stair, not so much that you would trip over it, but that it would reduce the dirt that could fall into your drawers. And again, the drawers can be organized with vertical folding. I've got a YouTube channel. It doesn't have tons of videos, but it does have folding tutorials so that you can achieve that vertical file fold for almost any type of clothing. All right, the final top storage tip for small spaces is papers. I have a lot of clients with paper clutter, either that has accumulated from a long time ago or they just can't get it under control. So I would say, number one, go paperless as much as you can. Sign up for your e-billing and statements and things like that. And if not, set up a incoming paper station. It can be something that's wall mounted. I've got a wall mounted one here in my office, and it's got 3 folders. They're just like simple file folders. The first one collects anything that requires action from me. So if a bill comes in the mail that I need to pay, maybe it's not an e-billing one, but there's tolls or random stuff that doesn't automate billing. Anything that requires your action, whether you need to choose a new health plan and sign up or whatever, goes into that folder. The second folder are things that you need to keep. So maybe, you're preparing for taxes or you own a business and you need to keep your receipts filed or something like that. Have a place to collect those as they come in. It's separate from a filing system. It's somewhere to collect those until you're ready to do all of your filing. And then the final category is kind of a catch-all, but anything that's pending. So for example, when you need, say you get a coupon for like an oil change and your car isn't due for an oil change, but it will be soon. So you need a holding place for things. Some people throw those things up on a magnet on the fridge, but again, that's that visual clutter for me. So I like to create a home that's not like right in my face. And then the second part of this system is that you have to be really diligent about clearing those folders out either on a weekly or biweekly basis. So I usually let mine go for 2 weeks unless I have a really urgent action that I need to take. And I take care of all my actions. It takes no more than 10 minutes. I put my filing away, so all of my business receipts either get scanned in or they go in a filing box or drawer, whatever system you create for yourself, and then just check the pending. Is there something that that needs to move up to the action file, or is this no longer needed and I can just recycle it at that point? So sorting your papers as they come in into these 3 categories will help prevent them from building up at all. And you'll want to have a separate filing place or digitize all of those important files and have them in a place for you where you can access them. All right. Final little topic before we get to questions. No, sorry, there's 2 more topics. So I'll briefly mention the mindset shift that occurred for me and that I've seen occur for my clients from completing this process is you totally have a mindset shift around the things that you go out and buy. You are already so familiar with everything that you own. You know where everything is. And you're not going to impulsively pick something up because you already understand what brings you joy. And generally speaking, the shiny object that's by the cashier is not going to really bring you joy long term. So you definitely reduce and have more conscious shopping behaviors. And like I said, you're more in tune with your joy, your emotions, and your values from going through all your sentimental stuff. You get really clear on your emotional intelligence and you process a lot of feelings that maybe have built up over time, and you know what you value. So again, you're not going to accumulate things in the same way. And especially if you practice that paper strategy that I just shared, you become much more decisive and quicker to take action because you recognize that the satisfaction you get from getting things done and having things away and in their home is just so much greater than, a moment of laziness where you just want to kind of drop it on whatever surface is near you and forget about it. It definitely has an effect on mental health long term. And again, it makes you more present and grateful because you have this appreciation for everything you own and how it serves you in your life and everything that you have had and all of the lessons that you've learned along the way. So it's just a really beautiful process that it changes your mindset for good. All right, quickly. Once you've completed this process, or actually you can start instituting some of these habits right away, you will not have clutter become a problem. All right, the first tip is the 2-minute rule. So this rule states that anything that you can do with 2 minutes or less, do it right away. Don't wait. So if that means, I finished my tea and I need to go put my mug in the dishwasher or hand wash it really quickly, that will take less than 2 minutes. I should just do it now, get it done, and just have the satisfaction that it's put away. When you've got papers in your hand and you're walking in the door, it takes less than 2 minutes to open the envelopes and sort them into those categories that I shared. After you brush your teeth in the morning, it takes less than 2 minutes to put your toothbrush in the medicine cabinet or in the drawer, wherever it's supposed to go. If you just are constantly dealing with these little tiny tasks, then they won't build up and become this huge project that you then have to tackle. The paper reset, which I've already talked about, so you'll have those 3 categories. Your papers are all sorted, and you just need to take 10 or 15 minutes to clear out those folders and have a look at what you need to do. The pre-bedtime sweep, I do this daily, before I go to bed, before I get too sleepy, really. Sometimes I'm on the couch watching TV and then all bets are off. But maybe after dinner or at some point in the evening, just kind of walk around and see if there's anything out of place. If there's a glass, of water on the coffee table or, shoes by the door that need to go somewhere else, a coat hanging on a rack that can go into its home. Just by doing this 5 to 10 minute routine at nighttime and making sure that everything is in its place, you will wake up in a tidy home every day, and it's easier than you think. Once you've done this giant clean out, it's a lot easier to maintain. If you're sharing a space, then you definitely want to communicate where homes are. Also, if you've got someone else that doesn't live with you that helps you maybe do cleaning or whatever the case may be, make sure that there is communication about where things belong and label shared spaces. So I see this especially in pantries and bathrooms and things like that. Kids' closets even. It just depends on the home situation. But if you try out all of these habits, one more, unpack right away. So this is whether you just moved in or you just got back from a vacation or you just got back from the store, whatever the case may be. If you've got things in a bag, unpack them right away, put them away, and just be done with it. I can't promise that it will take less than 2 minutes. But I can tell you that I've seen, I've gone through the entire process with clients. We've already, done clothes and books and papers and onward. And then we find this like suitcase that has never been unpacked from a trip like 6 months ago. And they're like, oh my God, that's where those shoes were. Oh, I didn't know. Like I already replaced them. Or, you can easily replace things and have duplicate purchases if you're not diligent about unpacking things. And that's especially true in a tiny home where there's just not space for stuff to sit around. So get to it right away. And my final kind of wisdom is don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. I'm sure through this talk, you're just like dreaming and imagining like, I bet she lives in the perfect home. Like, no home is perfect all the time. But by being diligent about maintenance, you can definitely have a good, solid, tidy space. I want to briefly mention before I take questions that I am launching my first online course. So if, this 1 hour was enough to, get your intrigue about this process and you really want to commit, this would be a perfect New Year's resolution. It's a New Year's program starting January 1st. It'll be 9 weeks, and each week I will walk you through the category of the week, and you'll have the support of the community of the group that joins. There will be, video recordings that you can watch on your own time and assignments each week. And then there will also be a live component discussion board where you can share and ask questions. I've got a coupon code, TINY. It'll save you $100 on the course. The price is $350. So with that coupon, you'll get 9 weeks for $250, and you can tidy your entire home in 9 weeks. It finishes just at the end of February. So that is the website there where you can register. I would love to have some tiny homers in there just to round out the group. And with that, I will take questions. So I think I'm going to share the mic with Lindsay, and she will help feed me some of the questions because I know some of them came in throughout. So when I see that mic request coming in, I'll accept it from Lindsay. But let me see. Okay, Natalie asks, how do you choose between, share the mic? Okay. Let me bring in Lindsay. Okay. I had one going and now I'm lost.
Who loved Erin?
Hi, Lindsay.
You guys, so powerful. Yeah. I was taking my notes.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so there was a lot of different people, but I think they all behaved well.
Okay, I'm going to answer Natalie's question while we figure out the mic situation. Okay, so Natalie asked, how do you choose between or make space for different hobbies when downsizing and designing for a tiny home, especially when you have quite a few? Excellent question, Natalie. That is tough. I mean, you really have to be clear on your ideal lifestyle. With hobby equipment, those things can get quite large if we're talking, outdoor sports or large format art or, photography. There's a lot of equipment involved with all of these. I wonder if you could, join an organization where you then share equipment or just choose to rent, equipment for some of those hobbies. Because yeah, you can't have it all and live in a tiny home. That's kind of the tough part. But thank you for your question, Natalie, and I wish you luck. Okay, scrolling down.
Can you hear me, Erin?
What's happening? Okay, so I'm seeing a comment. You can hear both, but I can't hear Lindsay. I'm not sure that's going to be helpful then. Sorry, Lindsay. I'm going to disconnect you just so. Okay, thanks. Thanks for being here. Thanks for trying. Okay, I might have to move to Texas. Rashvir says, yes, sounds good. You're inspired to work on a category. That's wonderful. Okay, let me see. More questions. Throw your questions in the chat box. Okay, I have a work box. I think they're called Dream Box now. All my rubber stamping, scrapbooking, Bible journaling fits inside. It's like a craft room in a small space. Sounds awesome, Loretta. Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you were able to get something from this for all the positive affirmations out here. Okay, looking for questions. How do you choose? Oh, I already got that one. Thank you, Natalie. I've wondered about having a shed or something to store stuff like that you don't need all the time for seasonal things. Yeah, that's a good idea. Or if you could store seasonal items maybe under the home, is that possible? Okay, Loretta has a question. She's a tiny house dweller. I'm a teacher. I have a book collection. It's in storage, which I carefully curated so that everything is accessible. I swap out my classroom books often. They aren't in my tiny, but they are still an important part of my necessary resources. That's awesome, Loretta. I'm glad that you still have access to those. And I think that swapping out is a really good solution when you have a larger collection of something that you can't keep it all in the house. Also, this is an aside, but clothing swaps are an amazing way, if you're a fashion person, or book swaps if you're a book person, getting together a group of like-minded people every once in a while to swap out your stuff so you're not constantly buying new or accumulating more than you can do. Okay. Going back down. Okay, suggestions for wine storage and large medical equipment. I can say for wine storage, IKEA has a really excellent wine rack that, you can wall mount, and it fits 4 bottles. If you've got, a massive collection, that probably won't get you very far. But, maybe you don't need to keep such a massive collection unless it's an investment, in which case you probably want to have, I imagine, a wine cellar. Rent the Runway, Ebony says, that's also a great suggestion for renting special occasion things, especially. Okay. Monica, I always struggle with the best ethical, ecological friendly way to get rid of excess items, clothes, etc. when doing the first large purge. Where do you tell clients to donate, sell, throw away? Local clients, I have created a page on my website called Sustainability, and I have all of these, there's pet shelters that take, old towels and blankets. There's local nonprofits. So check in your area what nonprofits. It may be tricky now during the pandemic. Some may not be accepting donations, but yeah, I can share, Monica, in that problem. I mean, I had to do a lot of research on, what do you do with, paints, house paints, and hazardous waste like that, old batteries, old electronics. You got to do some Googling and do some research. But you can look at my sustainability page to get ideas, what's available in the Austin area, and then see if there's something similar where you are. One of my favorite nonprofits is called Austin Creative Reuse, and they accept, office supplies, craft supplies. So if knitting used to be a passion of yours, but is no longer, you can donate it there. And, it just allows the creative potential for all of these good materials to have a second life. Another good one, and I'm going to put this in the chat box, maybe you've heard of Buy Nothing groups, but they are really hyper local chapters, for neighborhoods. And you can offer up like, hey, does anyone want, take a picture? It's through a Facebook group, and it's all, nearby neighborhoods. And you can offer, even if you do a pantry clean out, like, I tried these beans and I didn't really like them. Does anyone want these beans? And they'll come pick them up on the porch. It's wonderful. What do you do with all that family stuff? Oh, I'm losing it. People are asking, which is wonderful. What do you do with all that family stuff? Things you sort of have to hang on to. Big Daddy, A, I appreciate your name as Big Daddy. That's amazing. I said A. B, you don't have to hang on to anything. That's kind of holding on to guilt and pressure from external sources. I mean, I'm not sure what family stuff you're referring to, but a lot of times, the big brown wood furniture that your great grandmother has passed on, I guarantee like your great grandmother doesn't want you to feel burdened. And what I would argue that what's more important is, her legacy. So, maybe you have a small piece of something that captures who she was, and you can hold on to that, but you don't need to feel like you have to keep everything just because that's what your parents did and their parents did and their parents did. All right, we've got about 5 minutes left. Let's see. I'm planning on digitizing most photos, but also have an album the kids can look at because they love looking at photos. Awesome. Which receipt scanning apps do you recommend? Dropbox has a really easy scanner with your phone. I actually have a physical scanner that I can connect to my laptop, and it's called ScanSnap. It's Fujitsu. It's really small, so it would work for a tiny home, and I love it. So I'll throw that in the chat box for you. Dealing with photos. Okay, really quick, in 4 minutes or less. So when dealing with photos, you want to categorize them first. So as you're sorting, throw out duplicates, or offer them to family members if they want them. Get rid of any blurry photos. Get rid of, landscapes that you don't really care to remember. Get rid of people that you don't recognize unless, if we're going back to that family stuff. And then sort. So for me, when I did it, I did like early childhood, high school, college, post-college life. And then I also had like, trips. So I had like a whole Spain pile. And as you have each of those categories, then you go through and you pick your favorites. I mean, nobody says you have to keep every single photo that you've ever taken. I mean, now digital libraries are a whole other mess, and we didn't talk about digital photos or digital organization. But yeah, once you have them into categories, it becomes much easier. And then you can pick your favorite photos of each person in your life or each experience that has kind of created who you are. So this is a big part of the emotional processing and the letting go of the excess. So you can, maybe decide anything that fits in this box is what I keep. How to approach decluttering with a stubborn family member. Marie Kondo's advice is to do it yourself first and try to inspire others. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't control what anyone else does, and you can't change someone who's not ready to change. So Jenny, I get it. It's super tricky, and it just requires patience and communication. I love Julia's idea. She put together items for a raffle for charity. That's wonderful. Okay, how do you talk with a hoarder or someone you live with that is holding on to too much stuff? Thank you, Lindsay, for bringing that to my attention. Okay, if it's a hoarder, like by the true definition, that's not something that's within my purview. I think there's, psychological, likely trauma kind of connected to that desire to, build a wall of stuff between you and the external world. So that can be extremely difficult. When it comes to someone you love that's just holding on to too much stuff, like maybe get a Marie Kondo's book or watch this recording with them and see if they have any kind of ahas or inspiration from that. Like I said, you can't really change other people. So that's really tough. Jody says, have to is our own prison. Totally agree. Celia says that photos can be scanned. Absolutely. There are also companies where you can just mail things in and they'll digitize them, or they'll update the technology, which is really cool. How in the world do you deal when a partner can't quite remember to put the stuff back? I'm with you, Jane and Sky. I remind my husband every night before we go to bed when I'm doing the bedtime sweep. I'm like, oh, where do those go? And he gets it, you know. You just got to work it out. Okay. Thank you all for being here. We're about out of time. On the screen is my email address. So if you have, continuing burning questions, you can send them there. I'd also love to see you in that course. I'm giving you guys the best discount of all. I haven't even rolled out my early bird discount, but this one's even better than that. So again, thank you so much. I'm going to sign off. Thanks for being here, and I hope to see you and hear from you soon. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye, guys.